This week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry. With agriculture broadcasters Orion Samuelson and Max Armstrong. And featuring agriculture meteorologist Greg Soulje. This week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Pioneer. Proud to work with farmers in the most complex and rewarding industry on earth.
Election day has come and gone. We'll dig into what it means for agriculture. Welcome to This Week in Agribusiness. It was a busy week, to say the least, with the election on Tuesday. A lot of folks in rural America were able to get out and vote, and we're seeing some fallout from that. One of the places we're seeing some fallout is in Minnesota. The chair of the House Ag Committee, Representative Collin Peterson of Minnesota, has been voted out. To help us make sense of what this means, Spencer Chase, the managing editor of Agri-Pulse, is here to join us. Spencer, was it a surprise to see Collin Peterson lose his seat?
So it wasn't necessarily a surprise that he lost this seat. Going in, we knew it was going to be a very close race. A number of rating services either had labeled this race as a toss-up or potentially a leans Republican kind of race. And keep in mind, this is a district that it was widely expected in Washington that should Collin Peterson ever decide to retire, this district was going to go Republican and stay that way. This is a district that voted for President Trump by a margin of about 30 points in the last two elections. And so it was very much so going to be an uphill battle for the chairman to be able to retain that seat. But a number of things also went into play. He was running against a former lieutenant governor of that state, a reasonably well-known candidate, and so ended up losing by a decent margin. The result is not necessarily a surprise. The margin kind of is. He lost by about 14 points, a measure of about 50,000 votes. So a bit of a surprise, the extent to which he lost that race, but the fact that he actually was voted out of office. A lot of people in DC ag circles were certainly not hoping for it, given his knowledge and expertise on the House Ag Committee, but not exactly shocked by it.
Well, and I think you raise an interesting point. Collin Peterson is no spring chicken on the Ag Committee. He's served for quite some time. He has been a voice of rural America. Now with that shifting, tell us a little bit about how this could impact the Ag Committee once the new Congress starts in January.
Well, to your point, Congressman Peterson was elected to Congress first in the 1990s. He slowly worked his way up the level of seniority in the House Ag Committee and has actually been the top Democrat on the House Ag Committee for the last three farm bills, either as chairman or as ranking member. So this is a level of experience that you don't very easily replace. But he did make a point of saying when he resumed his chairmanship after the 2018 midterms when Democrats regained the House, that he was going to make sure that all of his subcommittee chairs were involved in an effort to create a bit of a leadership bench, so to speak, within the committee. Ended up being a very prescient decision given the 2020 election results. But we do see a couple of contenders to potentially take his seat. Folks like Marcia Fudge out of Ohio, viewed as a very serious contender. Jim Costa of California, and David Scott of Georgia, also some contenders that are currently on the committee. There are a few other folks that could potentially weigh in and make a bit of a political maneuver for chairmanship, because it's not exactly it's not a perfect seniority contest necessarily. There is a Democratic steering committee that will choose this chairmanship, and it's ultimately up to the Speaker of the House who chairs those committees. But obviously seniority and knowledge of the issues will play a big factor. And potentially if we move away from Chairman Peterson, who came from a very rural district, a lot of production agriculture in his neck of the woods, we look at the rest of the roster of the House Agriculture Committee, there are some rural districts. There is some production agriculture in some of those areas. But a lot of the Democrats on the committee very concerned about the nutrition programs that are under the oversight of the Department of Agriculture. And so that's where a lot of their interests are going to lie. And will their policy concerns lie in that direction as well? Obviously remains to be seen. We don't know who the next chairman is going to be quite yet, and we don't quite know what that level of impact will have on the next farm bill.
Well, Spencer, you talk with folks involved in the agriculture industry, be they industry members themselves, whether they're industry groups, whatever it is. Everybody's got a strong locus there in Washington, D.C., and you interact with them all. As the results from this election continue to come in and we start to find some certainty, what are you hearing generally? What's the sentiment with regard to agriculture in D.C.?
Well, I think the fact that we saw, just kind of looking through the rural margins in some of these districts, we saw in 2020 what we saw in 2016, especially in regards to the presidential race. We saw rural districts come out in, by and large, pretty strong support for President Trump. His plan in 2016 was to sort of run up the score in some of those rural counties to sort of offset losses he would have in urban and suburban America. That's something that definitely happened again here in 2020. And that sort of trickled down to some of his Senate races, where we saw the Republicans able to hold on to a number of critical Senate seats. And, obviously the House, a couple of rural Democrats had a bit of a rough day on Election Day as well.
Well, Spencer Chase, we really appreciate you taking the time to fill us in on everything that is happening in Washington, D.C. Thanks for taking the time to chat with us today.
Pleasure is mine, Mike. Thanks.
Well, folks, we made it through Election Day, and we've seen the grain markets continue to rally. To help us understand what's impacting the prices you receive on your farm, Tommy Grisafi is joining us this week. And Tommy, we've come through the election season. We've seen the grain markets continue their rally. March corn back up above $4. We're north of those pre-election highs. The demand is still out there. Is this going to continue through the month of November?
Let's hope so, Mike. It's been a long time since we've been on shows being able to talk about elevated prices. And we're not just kind of moving up. The markets have had an incredible bounce. Before the election, we had a go at it, and we pulled back. And some people thought it was over, but a demand bull market gives you a chance to get in. This week, just a phenomenal week in prices, and let's hope it continues. But most importantly, we're seeing great export sales. The bigger question, Mike, will be pretty soon, do we have enough to go around? Are we going to run out of soybeans, and how high does the price have to go to make that stop?
Well, let's talk about soybeans right off the bat. We're north of $11 in a lot of the deferred contracts. These are prices that not a lot of growers penciled in on their balance sheets earlier in the year. Tommy, how should they be taking advantage of it?
Think about 2020. That's so 2020, Mike. The government gave out a huge amount of money, WIP plus, crop insurance, still fighting with China money, everything. And then you get a rally like this. Wow, farmers might owe taxes, and we know how much that upsets them. But moving forward, what do you do, right? So as things change politically, is the government going to keep handing out money? Or can you count on money from the government to run your operation? We have a bull market. We have a demand bull market. But moving forward, Mike, I'm concerned for American agriculture, and that the farmer stays disciplined and keeps protecting price. They don't have to sell it, but try to throw some floor under there and keep a nice price, because your bankers also see the market rallying.
Well, then that's the truth of the situation. But we have seen, as you mentioned, continued strong export sales. Corn exports this past week exceeded analyst expectations on the high end. Tommy, as long as there are foreign buyers, are we going to continue to see prices rally?
That would be wonderful. But I think we have to think forward about this year, right? So to say markets can continue to rally, this is the year crude oil traded negative $45. And markets can do whatever they want. And maybe this is the year, Mike. I don't want to get people's hopes up, but maybe this is the year that we really surprise to the upside. 2020 is going to end with a bang, and I'm sure 2021 is going to be just as interesting. Never in the history of the world has there been this much pent-up capital. And interest rates across the world are record low. England actually talked about going to negative interest rates, and they gave out money that's equivalent to a couple $1,000s per person. There's funny money out there, Mike, and it's looking for a home. Maybe agriculture's the spot. Time will tell.
So, Tommy, are we seeing that influx of investors into agriculture as of yet, or right now are we still buying fundamentals, so to speak?
Mike, we have the best of both worlds. We have speculative longs in there. We have people interested in buying things. And then we have a supply and demand problem. So the supply was light, the demand's high. It's a perfect mix for volatility.
Man, a lot of things to keep an eye on as we get ready to head into this winter season in greater detail. Tommy, we'll be right back to continue discussing. We also have things happening in the wheat market, and of course, we can't forget about livestock. So we'll be back for more with Tommy Grisafi here in just a second. This portion of This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by the Soybean Checkoff. Tips, videos, how-tos, and more. If it has to do with ag tech, you'll find it in the Tech Tool Shed, your unbiased one-stop resource. We're talking markets with Tommy Grisafi, and while we're talking about the markets this fall, a lot of growers are thinking ahead to next year. Tommy, this has been a really good fall. A lot of folks are able to get into the field, get some work done, maybe get caught up. What does that tell you about acre expectations for 2021?
Well, the March acreage expectations, it's always a big number, and we have elevated prices now. I could only imagine with weather problems in South America and continued demand, how motivated the American farmer will be to plant a record amount of acres. Between fall work being able to get caught up on, especially my friends up in North Dakota, a huge amount of ditching, fertilizers on, they are ready to go. Turn the clock to spring, watch for North Dakota to plant a record amount of acres. And not only up there, but across America. One other thing to keep an eye on, prices are going up. Check your local fertilizer prices. It's not often that you see low fertilizer and elevated prices. You might want to get some of that secure.
Tommy, with the expectation of increased acres in both corn and beans next year, should growers be getting any price protection on next year's crop given this rally?
Absolutely. It depends on your storage situation. For those who know they can't store it, they have choices. They could forward sell, maybe have some call ownership. Depending on what you want to do, there's just not a lot of bushels out there. So there'll be a lot of available storage next year. Keep an eye on your spreads. Mike, as you know, we like to throw puts under the market, keep a floor, give yourself that chance to roll that put up. We don't have bull markets often, and you don't want to miss them. So a put's actually a bullish thing, not to give you the sales pitch, but anyone who knows that they've sold cash right off the combine and didn't replace it with anything, making a cash sale's real, and you don't get to do redos here in the market. So it's a bull market, it's a demand market. We had weather problems in August. Let's learn how to be optimistic about commodity prices moving forward into 2021.
Well, and one reason folks could be optimistic, of course, is the weakness in the U.S. dollar. We've seen a substantial decline in its value just since Tuesday, an election day. Tommy, this is going to bode well for exports going forward, isn't it?
A weak dollar is wonderful to trade. We talked earlier about the demand bull market. We talked about supply problems. You throw a weak dollar in there, this could almost become explosive. Now, I don't want anyone to get too excited, because anytime we all get bulled up, you know what happens, Mike. We end up looking back at these videos, and they'll say, oh, Tommy and Mike, we're all bulled up, and look at them. They all look silly. So be as bullish as you can afford to be. Sell some cash grain and keep some upside. But this feels real. I'm excited.
And Tommy, it's not just corn and soybeans. Wheat has been exploding higher as well. When you look at the wheat market, of course, we've got dryness concerns in this country. We've got dryness concerns in Russia. Do you have a top-end target on Chicago wheat that you're aiming for yet?
Mike, I don't trade as much Chicago wheat as I used to. I only have a few customers I use that product. I'm more up north in the Minneapolis grain wheat, the hard red spring based out of the Minneapolis Grain Exchange. And that one's not been performing as well, which is strange. When you look at the spread, usually your higher quality wheat, like your Minneapolis, then your Kansas City, then your board. But the money, Mike, we talked about money earlier. The money's in the Chicago contract. You couldn't move 10,000, 20,000 contracts at a clip in the Minneapolis thing. So the border trade wheat, to me, is more where the speculator is. The real high quality wheat's up north. I once have seen Minneapolis spring wheat trade 25. Now, I'm not that bullish, but we can go a lot higher from these prices. It's happened before. It can happen again.
And you think spring wheat will be a benefactor at some point?
Absolutely. A rising tide brings up all ships. A lot of commodities are going up. Spring wheat's going to go along for the ride. All
right. Well, lots of things to keep an eye on. Tommy, livestock going higher. Final thought?
Well, you have higher input costs, and that should scare the heck out of you. If you have to get corn needs locked in or meal, keep an eye on your meal and corn. Those animals just, they need to eat something. So it takes protein to make protein. Keep an eye on that. The whole world's trying to grow their herd and catch up from this whole corona. The world will not get caught short food again. And there's a food scarcity trade going on. And there's nothing that makes people feel better than a nice meal.
That's true. Tommy Grisafi, Advanced Trading.
Chad Colby's look at agriculture technology comes your way next, brought to you by the IBM Watson Decision Platform. Combining AI with Internet of Things data to help agribusiness increase yields, improve quality, and drive sustainability.
For 10 years or so, technology companies have been pushing everyone to use the touchscreen, and it's been great. But sometimes you need a keyboard to get work done, and Chad Colby has a new option for us.
Did your tablet replace a laptop? Hi everyone, I'm Chad Colby, and on this week's tech segment, I've got something so cool to show you. Now, Apple came out with the Smart Keyboard about 5 years ago, and as you can see here, it's kind of neat. It magnetically attaches and the keyboard just works. But recently they came out earlier this year with the Magic Keyboard. And I'll be honest with you, it's $300. I drug my feet on this. I really didn't see where it was going to fit in my technology ecosystem, if you would. But let me tell you, I pulled the trigger on this about a month ago, and I am so glad I did. And it is an amazing, amazing attachment for your iPad. You can adjust the screen just like you would on your laptop. And it's got a great fit and finish. So it's small and agile. It's easy to move around. And after using it for a month, and I shared this with some of my friends, everybody's agreed with me. Now, they've integrated some pretty neat technology. You can see the USB Type-C plug-in right there. Obviously, to power the device, you can put that in and it will charge the tablet. Now, you don't need it plugged in to operate the keyboard. But it's pretty neat how they did that because you could just take the tablet off and go to work. Now, as far as using the device, I can tell you this. If you're doing heavy computing, you need a good, honest, good-feeling keyboard and touchpad, and this device has it. And after using it for about a month, I can tell you it's really changed the game for me with my iPad Pro. Now, it's got some features, too, you wouldn't think would be in a device like this. And one of them is, of course, is the touchpad. The second part is the keyboard is backlit, just like all of our laptop computers, which is really nice. But for me, the real test is travel and being efficient when I'm on the road. And recently, I took a flight, and I had both my laptop and I had my iPad Pro with the Magic Keyboard. So I got it out and said, I had some work to do. I'm going to try it. And I loved it. Small, agile, compact, and worked really great. So if you're looking for a way to get a little more efficiency with your tablet, be sure to check this out. For This Week in Agribusiness, I'm Chad Colby.
Thank you, Chad. It's always great to have new tools to be efficient when you're on the road or in the cab. Speaking of being in the cab, stay with us. We'll get you in the cab of a Claas tractor later on, running a triple disc mower through some alfalfa. Don't go away. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us this weekend. As a lot of us in rural America look out our windows this time of year, we see all kinds of combines moving down the road and in fields. And in fact, you could check out the Farm Progress virtual experience to see a handful of new combines from the cab. But there's another way to get corn out of the field: by hand. Max had a chance to sit down and talk about hand husking at the Half Century of Progress, and he gives us an update on what to expect when you're out there with old-timey tools.
Mike, have you ever seen it done in competition? Hand corn husking? Taking that shuck off. Well, you take the ear from the stalk, then you take the shuck off, then you throw the ear in the wagon. I've seen guys competing, and it is remarkable to watch. I talked with Richard Humes about that at the Half Century of Progress, about the people, about the skills, and about the competition. Talk with us about the hand corn husking. You guys have done it here at the show. You've done it many years. You've been here to display the predecessor of the mechanical corn picker, the hand husking peg. As we look at these cases displaying the various husking devices, it appears many of them were in fact homemade.
There was a lot of them homemade. There was only about 7 companies that made them. There was 3 companies in Beatrice, Nebraska. There was 2 in Shenandoah, Iowa, one in Chicago, and 1 in Kewanee, Illinois. And in this area, you're going to find most of them are Kewanee.
Did all of them have metal in them, or were some made of plastic?
Most of them was metal. There were some wood pegs. There was some brass pegs that come out, and then they come with metal. The first known patent was 1869, after the war, and there was patents on them till 1939. That was the last of the patents. And I don't think there was many hooks made after 39. Probably old stock was sold out of the stores and stuff.
Would an individual typically, when they got a husking peg that they liked, would they just stay with that exclusively, or would some people kind of trade off and vary during the harvest season?
Well, I think a lot of the companies pushed them and tried to get people to advertise for them, but I think everybody actually had their favorite. Once you get used to one, you never change. I was to a state contest one year, and it was damp and raining, and Bill Gillen says to me, he said, I wouldn't pick with that one. It's two-pointed. I'd pick with the other, and you got in your pocket. Well, that was the biggest mistake I ever made. And I took a whipping at that contest over it, so.
Back in the day when it was sponsored by Prairie Farmer Magazine and WLS Radio out of Chicago, these sports contests drew tens of thousands of people. It was the predecessor to the Farm Progress Show, correct?
Exactly. Davenport, Iowa, they thought there was 100,000 people there. Tonic, Illinois, they thought there was 125,000. Tonic, it was muddy, and I've got newspaper clippings where the women and the men lost their shoes and they just walked out of them. I mean, it was unbelievable. But I just can't imagine. People would show up in three-piece suits and nice dresses and overcoats to come to that contest. And of course, so they showed the new cars, the new tractors, the electricity had come in by that time, the washing machines, the refrigerators, and anything like that. The electric stoves was showed at these contests.
The other thing that comes to mind is how revered these athletes, I'll call them athletes, were.
Exactly.
I mean, but they were stars. They were up on a pedestal. Everybody knew their name.
Exactly. Carl Sider in 1932 was a bachelor, got marriage proposals from all over the United States. And the contest that I would have liked to seen would have been 1937, 1938, and it was a Huskers King Sweepstakes, and they brought back all the old national champions, and that would have been the two contests. Siler got fifth in 37, and in 1938 he won it, and he got $500. Okay, that was a lot of money, but he was then considered a paid contestant. He could no longer participate in the national contest. And he told me, or he didn't, his daughter told me, that her dad never regretted taking the $500 because it saved the farm.
Interesting. That was kind of the World Series, the Super Bowl, the U.S. Open wrapped up in one, wasn't it?
Exactly, it would have been. I mean, they had 40,000 people there. I mean, I just can't believe. And you take back in the 30s, 35 or 40,000 people, and they travel from Illinois or Indiana clear to Kansas to pick. Well, think of the transportation. They either had to come by railroad or they had to drive it. And I would have had to drive a 1932 car across that far. I mean, you'd probably be 40 mile an hour would probably be top speed. So, I mean, geez, it would have been like a big vacation for these people.
Those had to be long days out there, just you and the horse bringing in the harvest. A farmer friend of mine the other day posted a video of his brand new combine going through the field at about 6.5 to 7 miles per hour. My father used to talk about hand husking the corn crop as he was a young man. By the way, Mike, I have his husking peg, my dad's old husking hook, but do not ask me to demonstrate that skill. I know I'm not capable.
Thank you, Max, for that great story. And I tell you what, if you want to learn how to hand harvest, you just give me a call, Mr. Armstrong. A few years ago, I had the pleasure of competing in the Amana colonies in Iowa, in the Iowa Hand Husking Championship. And I don't mean to brag, but I did come in first in the celebrity division. I may have been the only celebrity. But I tell you what, folks, if you are looking for a COVID-safe way to exercise here in 2020, check out hand husking. It is a good workout. You're peaceful. It's outside. You're getting the fresh air, and there is nothing more satisfying than pulling that ear of corn off the stalk, tossing it into the wagon, and hear it hit that buckboard with a satisfying thump. Thank you so much, Max. It's great to see these old ways are still being practiced out in the countryside. And folks, stay with us. We'll have more coming up on This Week in Agribusiness, including a tribute to a legend in ag policy.
This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry, is brought to you by ADM.
Welcome back to This Week in Agribusiness. Over the past week, a legend in the world of agricultural policy passed away. Dr. Barry Flinchbaugh of Kansas State University was known for teaching classes and speaking all across the country, and he worked with Max quite a bit.
Yeah, Mike, when the news came out the other day that Dr. Barry Flinchbaugh had passed away, I heard from farmers all across the United States after I posted it in the social media. Truly, farmers and ranchers and others all the way from the Carolinas to California and from Texas up to North Dakota, weighed in on what Dr. Barry Flinchbaugh had meant to them. Some of them had sat in his classroom. Others had been in his audience at one time or another, and they never forgot Dr. Flinchbaugh. I visited with him earlier this year at the Farm Future Summit, and we were talking about the federal budget deficits. I said, nobody really cares about them. Dr. Flinchbaugh said they sure should.
The vast moderates, the vast group of moderates, which is 2/3 of the people at least, it could be explained to them. But our primaries are controlled by wingnuts. And moderates don't vote in the primaries. They don't concern themselves with those kinds of things. Then they get ready to vote in the general, and they don't like either candidate. Well, maybe you should have voted in the primary so you had a choice of who the candidates were in the general.
We always talk about those deficits as being something that our grandchildren will have to shoulder someday. Is that a realistic concern?
That's exactly right. The minimum they have to do is service it. And they aren't going to be able to service it at 5% prime. It's going to be 10 or more. Remember, you go back to Paul Volcker, we had 20% interest rates. He did whip inflation, but he broke a lot of us too. That's another thing. You're going to get rapid inflation if we don't get this in order. So, and there's time. I'm not arguing panic. I'm just saying, how come nobody pays any attention to it? Where are my conservative friends? They joined Rip Van Winkle or something.
Yes, he was a colorful character, and many people loved to try to do an imitation of Dr. Barry Flinchbaugh. He used to chew on a cigar on a regular basis, but hadn't had those around for years. Here are 3 quotes that were shared by my friend Mike Wilson, editor at Farm Futures, that were attributed to Barry Flinchbaugh. My grandma said, you don't wash your dirty linen in public. Commodity groups tend to wash their dirty linen in public, and they wonder why they get a bad rap instead of working together and compromising behind the scenes. Yeah, there's some truth to that. He also said, the reason my classes are always full is the word is out. The old man cares what happens to me personally. You can't fake that. It's either genuine or not, and the students can smell it. And finally, this quote attributed to Barry, in the end, my legacy really is my former students and the young farmers that I helped. All I want on my headstone is, he cared. What a great legacy. It was the teaching that Dr. Flinchbaugh loved most. Yes, he helped many lawmakers, state and federal, and he counseled corporate executives, but it was the teaching that mattered most. Dr. Flinchbaugh was 78, Mike, when he died the other day in Kansas.
Thank you, Max. I, too, had the chance to share the stage and share the table with Dr. Flinchbaugh several times, and every time, I always left the room a little smarter.
Now, agriculture meteorologist Greg Soulje brings us his farm weather forecast for the nation for the week ahead. It's presented by Pivot BioProven, the nitrogen-producing microbes that stay put, weather or not.
Well, it's weather time, and it's unseasonably warm across much of the country. Greg, are they seeing that on the West Coast?
No, actually, a change in the weather that, for a change, will work its way into the plains and Corn Belt, coming off this idyllic, almost September-like feel with some record and near record-setting warmth over parts of the plains and Corn Belt areas. But again, a turn as you would expect, and this is a welcome setup. At least if we can get the cold air in there, that means somewhat better opportunities for moisture. And here is this cold trough over the Pacific Northwestern parts of the country with probably some inland frost and freezes. Willamette Valley, Rogue River Basin where skies clear, winds drop back, and this will be another early season snow for parts of Big Sky country and the Dakotas, with cooler air working into the valleys of California. In the middle to late parts of the week, there may be some rainfall into parts of the northern Sacramento Valley, kind of a chill across the Intermountain West. The cold air up near the Canadian border, and a more typical mid to late autumn feel across the northern plains, with the next weather system making its way across the Bitterroots. That'll be working working to the east, so at least a progression of weather systems on the move into the northwestern part of the country. Drop off in temperatures, but not much of the way any organized moisture across the Sacramento Valley, according to our observer Russ Andrus. Don't think they had a drop of rain out there in the Sacramento Valley this past month, and the weather is certainly more winter-like again across sections of the central and southern Rockies. Beneficial moisture, I know it's snow, but it's moisture across those drought areas of the central and southern plains. The middle to late parts of the week, cold front snaps on in, milder air across the desert southwest. The chill but a quiet spell of weather expected from Nebraska on southward to the Red River Valley of the south.
You know, up in the central Corn Belt, I had friends who were hauling manure without a cab on their tractor. The weather was that good. That going to continue next week?
No, it will not. Well, at least let me clarify. Eastern Corn Belt for a day or two early on into the week. And here is the leading edge of reality making its way from Colorado to about the Corn Palace region up through the Arrowhead of Minnesota. This is more of a typical November feel. A little snow in the air and a fair amount of wind up near the Canadian border. Showers and a couple of thunderstorms making their way. This is fast moving. The moisture getting robbed from that tropical system over the southeastern part of the country. Nonetheless, some moisture to settle the dust. The wraparound effect does have a little snow, nothing unusual. Up towards the Twins, cold air. Northern parts of the Plain States, a more typical mid-November feel, and all but far eastern areas of the Corn Belt with a couple of more showers and thunderstorms. Again, get it done by mid-month, because after that, all bets are off with harvest and cleanup. Windy, cooler to colder air into parts of West Texas. A couple of showers and thunderstorms. Don't need any more moisture in those waterlogged areas of the Delta and parts of the southeastern states coming off the run of tropical weather systems. Dry time, colder air into West Texas cotton, sprinkles and snowflakes. Southern Rockies will get some snowfall with showers and thunderstorms lined up again. Delta and points on eastward on that cold front.
Now, I know a lot of growers out there still with harvest in the field. Those growers tend to be in the eastern Corn Belt. Are they going to be able to get things wrapped up?
I think if you can get it done into the early portion of the week, all bets are then after that off, I think, because we do get moisture enough to muddy things up. But until then, wind and warmth, low afternoon humidity, good moisture reduction. Need more moisture for this part of the country. We've seen some of late with dryness and drought in mind, but the Buckeye State, parts of Michigan behind. Hopefully we'll make amends before this takes hold. Some sprinkles mixed in with a bit of rain, sharply colder air. The jet stream still in from the southwest. That's usually an indicator of more moisture to come. And here's the remnant from Ada making its way up across sections of the east coast as well. Southeastern part of the country, drenching rains down through Florida. Showers and thunderstorms out of the Delta and moving on to the east, and they could be heavy and severe with downpours across the Carolinas, colder air wrapping in across the southern plains later in the week.
Now, Greg Soulje is back with his extended farm weather forecast for the country. Presented by Pivot Bio Proven. Visit pivotbio.com to find a representative near you.
All right, Greg, well, you mentioned harvest is coming along, but folks are trying to wrap up. How does this next week look for getting into the fields?
I think early in the week we're okay in the eastern Corn Belt, parts of the plains, some of the drier reaches will get some moisture. Don't need any more of it. We're well behind the 8 ball across the Delta, southeastern part of the country, and sections of the southern mid-Atlantic region. Yeah, this is the remnants from Ada making its way here. Yeah, there may be some good coverage moisture. Snow up near the Canadian border, an inch or two can't be ruled out. So again, get it done early in the week. Some moisture into the high plains areas. Nothing through central and southern California. A little more in the Pacific Northwest. That's the trademark, Mike, of La Nina, moisture in the northwest, nothing in the southwest.
All right, well, let's jump into the week ahead. The next week, what do things look like?
From a temperature standpoint, lingering cool to cold air after this delightful go of it in the eastern Corn Belt, parts of the plains back to reality. It certainly is with us here as we approach the Thanksgiving holiday. Warmth for the eastern states, even a frost and freeze potential into parts of the southern and southern sections of California, as well as the desert southwest. And here's how the moisture plays out with that significant drop and dip in the jet stream. Moisture, don't need any more of it here or here. We'll take it over the Corn Belt as long as you're in good shape harvest-wise. Remember, dryness and drought here, parts of the plains and into the Pacific Northwest, Northern California, a little moisture too.
Now this Thanksgiving, we might see fewer folks on the road, but travel is still important. What does it look like Thanksgiving week?
And get out and stretch your legs after the big meal as well. Here's the cold air, kind of retrograding a bit back across sections of California. Again, some early freeze potential here. Winter-like cold up through Big Sky Country. We get a reprieve. Some warmth back into the southern plains, Ohio Valley to the east coast and down through Florida as well. Not a reprieve. We think there's still going to be some late season tropical systems down through Florida, up the eastern seaboard. So we're wet here. Parts of the northern and eastern Corn Belt, normal precip across the heartland, dry as a bone, desert southwest, beneficial moisture, parts of the northwest.
Well, Greg, what are you seeing the first full week of December?
Yeah, that's right. Into meteorological wintertime we go, and not bad. The cold air retrograding up through the Canadian Prairie, dipping into the Great Lakes region, the northeast of New England. Pretty comfortable for the first week or so of December across the west, the southern states, and the southeastern sections of the country, too. But that temperature disparity will certainly keep moisture going, and yeah, some snow as you would expect. For parts of the northern and central plains, northern Corn Belt, more likely rain toward the Ohio Valley, mid-Atlantic region, getting a little dry time for the advancement of late season harvest and field work across the Delta and southeastern part of the country. Most of Texas is dry, southwestern sections of the country too. Onshore flow into northern California, so there's beneficial moisture. Drought easing into the Pacific Northwest, and again, typical snowfall expected near the Canadian border, the far northern and eastern Corn Belt region and sections of New England. We'll certainly keep you posted here in the weeks to come.
Next on This Week in Agribusiness, it's Max's Tractor Shed, spotlighting another great American tractor.
Well, we're going to deviate just a little bit in Max's Tractor Shed this weekend because I have this thing for old trucks these days, and there's some great ones that'll be sold in just a few days. Max's Tractor Shed is brought to you by Store Lock. They are the best tool cabinets you'll ever own. Check out what they have to offer. All made in the USA at storelock.com. Well, we're just about a week and a half away from the next Mecum Gone Farm and Auction at Davenport, Iowa. And that first day of the auction, November 19th, will feature trucks like this one. Check out this 1940 1.5-ton Chevrolet. It starts and runs good. The lights work, the brakes work, the tires are good. No bed, but now just think of that neat wintertime project that you could have putting a bed on that old Chevy. UKW fans, here's a 1962 Kenworth that'll be sold at the Mecum Gone Farm and Auction. Almost 60 years old. And look at this 1949 Dodge Series B. It was in Nebraska for most of its life. It was used to haul steers into the Omaha livestock market. We'll be a part of that auction activity. The trucks sell on the 19th, the rest of the auction on the 20th and 21st, including a live 1-hour broadcast on the 21st on RFD. Let's look at some more modern equipment. Moving across the block at Big Iron Auctions, Mark Stock is here with his weekly report.
Hi, Max. Big Iron will sell land and equipment this week on Tuesday, November the 10th. 1,870 acres of Pettis County, Missouri land will sell in 10 tracts. This is a hunting paradise property located northeast of Sedalia, Missouri. On Wednesday, November the 11th, 115 sellers from 15 states will sell a variety of equipment, including the Everett Thompson Retirement Sale in Quinemo, Kansas. Their sale features a John Deere 6125M mechanical front tractor with a loader. We've got several UTVs and ATVs selling for Mahindra USA out of their Houston, Texas location. Sun State Equipment Company, they'll be selling a John Deere loader backhoe and a Bobcat compact track loader and Genie scissor lifts. Armor Equipment Finance out of Moultrie, Georgia. They've got a 2018 Dunan triple axle 53-foot drop deck trailer. Also, Quality Pallet Company, LLC in Greensburg, Kentucky. They've got a 2016 JCB telehandler selling on Big Iron. Plus Thursday, November the 12th, 690 acres of Hamilton County and Clay County, Nebraska pivot irrigated land will be sold in 6 tracts. So visit Big Iron Auctions and Big Iron Realty for more details.
The Ffa Chapter Tribute is sponsored by Nationwide, the #1 farm insurer in the country. To register your FFA chapter, go to nationwidesupportsffa.com. That's nationwidesupportsffa.com. Nationwide, we stand for you.
This week's FFA Chapter Tribute takes us to Kansas, Burlington, Kansas, home of the Burlington FFA. Burlington is situated in east central Kansas, right on the edge of the Flint Hills, so it's no surprise that agriculture has a rich history in the community, with cattle, hay, and row crops all being prevalent. Unsurprisingly, the FFA chapter excels at its livestock SAEs, but students are encouraged to develop SAEs of all types. In fact, the chapter recently started utilizing 20 acres of native grass, and the Ag Department was able to secure a plasma CNC machine to use for internships apprenticeships in entrepreneurship and placement supervised agricultural experiences. But it's not just traditional ag who benefits from FFA. Here's Briley Ish talking about what she has learned.
I love it because I love public speaking, and I love it as well because it just gives me a platform to talk about. My main point in FFA is you don't have to be cows, plows, and sows to do it, because I'm not from that typical background. So I love having this platform that I can encourage other people to join FFA, because you don't have to be a farmer, or you don't have to live on a farm, or you don't have to do anything this or that relates to stereotypical FFA. So that's one thing I love about it.
We proudly salute the Burlington FFA chapter of Burlington, Kansas.
Now, Samuelson Says. Insight and commentary from Orion Samuelson.
Last week on Election Day, every American focused on the numbers in the presidential election. But there was another election that caught my attention because of its impact on American agriculture. Here's the story. Democratic Representative Collin Peterson, chairman of the House Agriculture Committee, failed to win re-election in Minnesota on Tuesday, and ruling parties take seniority into account when selecting committee chairs, providing an opportunity for Democrats like Jim Costa of California, David Scott of Georgia, and Marcia Fudge of Ohio into consideration to lead the Agriculture Committee. The House Ag Committee has jurisdiction over a vast range of agriculture and rural issues, including the Farm Bill, including renewable energy, disaster insurance, and crop insurance and nutrition. The latest Farm Bill, passed every 5 years, expires in 2023. So that means the new chairman of the House Agriculture Committee will have a major impact on the language of that bill. I know Collin Peterson. I've interviewed him many times during our careers and find him to be intelligent and understanding on all farm issues. So whoever replaces him as chairman of the House Agriculture Committee, I wish him well and I wish him success in writing the new Farm Bill. My thoughts on Samuelson Says.
The pace of change in agriculture technology is incredible. When I started raising cattle, I was mowing hay with a 7-foot sickle mower. At the Farm Progress Virtual Experience, you can experience a Claas 9200 triple disc mower. Here it is.
The Claas Disco 9200 triple mower. The Claas Disco triple mower is at least 2.5 times more productive than a self-propelled windrower. With working widths from 29 to 35 feet, a Claas triple mower makes quick work of the hayfield. It even holds the world record for 348.7 acres of alfalfa mowed in 8 hours. Compared to a windrower, triple mowers have 2 more mowing units and the added flexibility to use the tractor for other tasks outside of the mowing season. On average, a triple mower and tractor combination will cost $1.30 less per acre to operate than a windrower, due to savings in fuel consumption, labor, and depreciation. To reduce dirt included in the windrow, active float on the Disco mower allows the ground pressure of the mower to be adjusted with a single acting spool value, even while moving across the field. Not to be overlooked, the wave design of the MaxCut cutter bar allows dirt and other debris to easily pass underneath and not reduce the quality of crop in the windrow. Conditioner options for the mowers include rubber roll, tine, or no conditioner. Visit Claas.com to take a closer look at the Claas Disco Mower and Axion Tractor.
Incredible technology. Remember, you can see all 100 of the field demos from this year's Farm Progress Show on the website at farmprogressshow.com. Thanks for joining us this weekend, folks. We really appreciate you taking the time to sit with This Week in Agribusiness. We wish you the best. Have a safe week.
Closed captioning for This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Kubota. Shape your world. This Week in Agribusiness has been brought to you by Pioneer and ADM. This Week in Agribusiness is produced by Omax Communications in association with 22 Creative Group. We invite you to visit us online at agbizweek.com.